Welcome, my dear students. This is a new episode of biology. Today we will talk more about atoms, ions, and molecules. So let's start. The key concept today is all living things are based on atoms and their interactions. The first main idea, living things consist of atoms of different elements. The second one, ions form when atoms lose or gain electrons. Number three, atoms share pairs of electrons in covalent bonds. So let's start. This is the introduction of our lesson. The Venus flytrap, it produces chemicals that allow it to consume and digest insects and other small animals, like this unlucky frog right here. Okay, so frogs also produce specialized chemicals that allow them to consume and digest their prey. In fact, all organisms depend on many chemicals and chemical reactions. Yes, so this is why the study of living things also involves the study of chemistry. So here we will combine chemistry and biology. Living things consist of atoms of different elements. Okay, what do a frog, a skyscraper, a car, and your body have in common? Yes, they are all made of atoms. Every physical thing that you can think of, living or not, is made of incredibly small particles called atoms. And an atom is the smallest basic unit of matter. An atom is the smallest basic unit of matter. Millions of atoms could fit in the space of the size of the period at the end of this sentence. Can you imagine that millions of atoms can fit in this period, in this point or dot? And it would take you more than 1 trillion years. This is 1,000,000,000 years to count the number of atoms in a single grain of sand. This is only to indicate or to show how small the atom is. Although there is a huge variety of matter on Earth, all atoms share the same basic structure. All atoms consist of three types of smaller particles. Protons, which are positive or positive protons. The second type of particles are neutrons, which are neutral, plus or minus. This is for the neutral. And for neutrons and the electrons, they are negatively charged particles. So these are the three types of smaller particles which any atom on Earth consists of. Positive protons, neutral neutrons, and negative electrons. Let's talk more about these particles. Protons and the neutrons together, they form the dense center of the atom, which is the atomic nucleus. Electrons are much smaller particles outside the nucleus. So inside the nucleus of any atom, there are two types of particles, the positive protons and the neutral neutrons. They are found in the atomic nucleus. Then outside the nucleus, we have the negative electrons. Protons have a positive electrical charge, while electrons have a negative electrical charge. The neutrons, as their name implies, they are neutral. They have no charge. This is why they take the symbol plus or minus, because this is a neutral charge. The atom is electrically neutral. This is a very important part. The atom is electrically neutral. Why? Because an atom has an equal numbers of positively charged protons and negatively charged electrons. Great. An element is what's an element? An element is one particular type of atom, and it cannot be broken down into a simpler substance by ordinary chemical means. So an element, this is one particular type of atom, and it cannot be broken down into a simpler substance by the ordinary chemical means. An element can also refer to a group of atoms, but of the same type. An element can also refer to a group of atoms of the same type. A few familiar elements include gases such as hydrogen and oxygen, and metals like aluminum and gold. Because all atoms are made of the same types of particles, what difference among atoms makes one element different from the other? Yes, we already studied that. studied that all the atoms consist of the three types of particles: the positive protons, the neutral neutrons, and the negative electrons. So how we have different types of atoms? So what makes one element different from the other? Atoms of different elements differ in the number of protons they have. Atoms of different elements differ in the number of positive protons they have. Great. All atoms of a given element, since they are the same element, have a specific number of protons that never varies. So we said that, or for example, oxygen atom, the nucleus contains 8 protons. So all the oxygen atoms in the world, they have the same number of protons, which never varies. For example, all hydrogen atoms have 1 proton. All oxygen atoms have 8 protons. Great. Then what about the electrons? The electrons in the atoms of each element determine the properties of the element. So the number of positive protons determines the type of the element, but the number of negative electrons, this determines the properties of that element. Electrons are considered to be in a cloud around the nucleus. As you can see, this is the nucleus, and this is the cloud around the nucleus where the electrons move very fast. The exact position of electrons cannot be known. Yes, they are somewhere in a three-dimensional electron cloud around the nucleus because they move very fast. The simplified model of hydrogen atom and the oxygen atom that we will see in the next picture here, it illustrates how electrons move around the nucleus in regions called energy levels. So the different energy levels can hold different number of electrons. For example, the first energy level can hold up to 2 electrons, and the second energy level can hold 8 electrons. But keep this in your mind, atoms are most stable when they have a full outermost energy level. So let's look at the picture right here. This is the model of the atom developed by Niels Bohr. This is to the left, this part right here, shows that an atom's electrons are located outside the nucleus in regions called energy levels. Different types of atoms have different numbers of electrons and energy levels. As you can see, this is the hydrogen. The nucleus of the hydrogen contains only 1 positive proton. The outermost energy level is the first energy level, which contains 1 negative electron. Another example, this is the oxygen atom. The nucleus contains 8 protons, 8 positive protons, and 8 neutral neutrons. So let's distribute the electrons to the energy levels. The first energy level takes only 2. 8 minus 2 equal 6. So then we have 6 electrons for the next energy level. Next energy level will take the rest, the 6 electrons. The outermost energy level contains 6 electrons. What about the simplified model to the right? Often atoms are shown as simplified spheres. Different types of atoms are shown in different sizes and the colors. Can you see? This is a sphere, the small one for the hydrogen, the larger one, the red one for the oxygen. Okay. We have 91 elements that occur naturally on Earth. Out of these 91 elements, only about 25 are found in organisms. So 25 elements are found in the bodies of the living organisms. 4 of these elements make up 96% of the human body mass. Just 4 elements, which are carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen, sorry. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen, they make up 96% of the human body mass. What about the rest, the 4%? Here it is. The other 4% consists of calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, and several trace metals. What about the trace elements? Trace elements, these are elements found in very small amounts in your body, but you need them to survive. Like what? For example, the iron. Iron is needed to transport oxygen in your blood. This is very important. Chromium is needed for your cells to break down sugars for usable energy. Then there is a question that says how many electrons would need to be added to fill the outermost energy level of hydrogen and oxygen. Yes, hydrogen H, it contains only one proton, so one electron. To fill the outermost energy level, it will need one more electron. For oxygen, the oxygen atom contains 8 protons and 8 electrons. The outermost energy level contains only 6 electrons, so it will need 2 more negative electrons. 1 electron and 2 electrons. Then let's move to a different part, which are compounds. The atoms of elements found in organisms are often linked or bonded together with other atoms. So what is a compound? A compound is a substance made of atoms of different elements bonded together in a certain ratio. Like what? Like water, for example, like carbon dioxide. These are examples of compounds that we can find in the living organisms. Again, so what is a compound? It's a substance made of atoms of different elements bonded together in a certain ratio. A compound's properties, this is very important. A compound's properties are often different from the properties of the elements that make up the compound. What does this mean? Okay, do you remember the water H2O, what consists of oxygen and hydrogen? Both of them are gases at the normal temperature on Earth, but however, they can form water, which is a liquid, right? For example. Okay, similarly, diamonds. The diamond is pure carbon, but also carbon atoms are the basis of sugars, proteins, and millions of other compounds. This is to indicate how the properties of the compound are different from the properties of the elements that make up the compound. Okay, so how are elements different from compounds? Yes, great. Elements are composed only of one type of atoms, while the compounds are composed of different types of atoms that are bonded together with a certain ratio. Okay, then let's move to another part, which are the ions. Ions form when atoms gain or lose electrons. So what is an ion exactly? An ion, actually, it was an atom that has gained or lost one or more electrons. So what made the atom lose or gain one or more electrons? Let's see. An ion forms because an atom is more stable when its outermost energy level is full with electrons. An ion forms because an atom is more stable when its outermost energy level is full with electrons. So the gain or loss of electrons results in a full outermost energy level. Why the atom need a full outermost energy level? To be more stable. This is why it lose or gain electrons and become an ion. Let's see. An atom becomes an ion when its number of electrons changes and it gains an electrical charge, whether plus or minus, but it gains an electrical charge. This charge gives ions certain properties. For example, compounds consisting only of ions, they are called ionic compounds. They can easily dissolve in water. Okay, some ions are positively charged and others are negatively charged. The type of ion, whether it's a positive ion or a negative ion that forms, depends on the number of electrons in an atom's outer energy level. What do you mean by this? Let's see. An atom with few electrons, 1 or 2 or 3 electrons in its outer energy level, tends to lose those electrons. It's easier to lose them than to gain 5, 6, or 7 more electrons. So the atom that loses one or more electrons becomes a positively charged ion because it has more protons than electrons. Yes, when the atom loses electrons, so this means the number of positive protons becomes more than the number of negative electrons. So it will be a positively charged ion. On the other hand, an atom with a nearly full outer energy level, it contains 5, 6, or 7 electrons, and the outer energy level tends to gain electron. It is easier to get 3, 2, or 1 electron than to lose the 5, 6, or 7 electrons. So when the atom gains 1 or more electron, this means the number of positive protons becomes less than the number of negative electrons. In this case, the atom becomes a negatively charged ion because it has more electrons than protons. Actually, ions play a large role in organisms. For example, hydrogen ions or H positive or protons, they are needed for the production of usable chemical energy in your cells. Also, calcium ions, Ca+2, they are necessary for every muscle movement in your body. Chloride ions, Cl-, they are important for a certain type of chemical signals in the brain. This is very important. Ions usually form when electrons are transferred from one atom to another. This figure here shows the transfer of an electron from sodium atom to chlorine atom. As you can see, the sodium, this is Na11, and this is chlorine, Cl17. When you distribute the electrons to the energy levels, the first one take 2, the second the energy level, it will take 8. 2 plus 8 equal 10, 11 minus 10 equal 1. So here is 1 electron. So the sodium atom tends to lose this electron and it becomes a positively charged sodium ion. On the other hand, we have here the chlorine atom, Cl17, 2, 8, 7. So the outermost energy level contains 7 electrons. So it needs 1 electron to become stable. This is how the ionic bond forms. This atom lost 1 electron, the sodium, which was gained by the chlorine atom, and it became chloride ion. When the sodium atom loses its 1 outer electron, it becomes a positively charged sodium ion. The second energy level of the sodium ion is now complete with 8 electrons. It's a full outermost energy level. So where the transferred electron go? The transferred electron fills the chlorine's outermost energy level, forming a negatively charged chloride ion. The positive ions, such as sodium +1, are always attracted to negative ions, such as chlorine or chloride -1. So an ionic bond forms through the electrical force between oppositely charged ions. An ionic bond forms through the electrical force between oppositely charged ions. Different charges. Salt, the table salt or sodium chloride, is an ionic compound of sodium positive ion and chloride negative ion. Sodium chloride is held together by ionic bond. Then we have a question that says, what determines whether an atom becomes a positive ion or a negative ion? Actually, it is the electrons in the outermost energy level. Atoms with few outermost or outer electrons tend to lose electrons, so they become positive ions, while the atoms with almost full outer energy level tends to gain electrons and form negative ions. Okay, atoms share pairs of electrons in covalent bonds. Not all atoms easily lose or gain electrons. Some other atoms or the atoms of many elements share pairs of electrons, but pay attention that pair means 2. So the atoms, they share pairs of electrons. The shared pairs of electrons fill the outermost energy level of the bonded atoms. So it become also stable. This is what all the atoms seek, stability. A covalent bond forms when atoms share. The key word here is share, a pair of electrons. Let's see. Covalent bonds, they are generally very strong. Two atoms may form several covalent bonds to reach stability, to share several pairs of electrons. This depends on how many electrons an atom has in the outermost energy level. For example, the atoms of carbon and oxygen in the molecule of carbon dioxide, they share pairs of electrons in covalent bonds. All three atoms in a molecule of carbon dioxide, CO2, have full outermost energy level. Actually, the carbon atom, it needs 4 electrons to fill its outer energy level. And an oxygen atom needs 2 electrons to fill its outer energy level. So in the carbon dioxide molecule, carbon makes double bond or shares 2 pairs of electrons. 2 pairs means 4 electrons with each oxygen atom. As you can see here, this is 2 pairs with this oxygen atom, and these are 2 pairs with the other oxygen atom. So we will talk about molecules. We have 2 types of molecules. The first type of molecules, they are called monoatomic molecules. The word mono means one. So this molecule consists of one atom. Other molecules, they are called diatomic molecules. Diatomic, like hydrogen, for example, the molecule of hydrogen is H2. So these are 2 atoms of the same element. So what is a molecule? A molecule is 2 or more atoms held together by covalent bonds. A molecule is 2 or more atoms that are held together by covalent bonds. So in the compound carbon dioxide, each oxygen atom shares 2 pairs of electrons, which are 4 electrons with carbon atom. Okay, some elements occur naturally in the form of diatomic, as we mentioned, or a 2-atom molecule. For example, molecule of oxygen, O2, it consists of 2 oxygen atoms that share 2 pairs of electrons. Almost all of the substances that make up organisms, from lipids to nucleic acids to water, all these are molecules held together by covalent bond. And we have a question that says, summarize what happens to electrons in the outer energy levels when 2 atoms form a covalent bond. Whenever you see a covalent bond, so the answer is share pair or more of electrons. Atoms share pairs of electrons of the outermost energy level. I hope you understood this session. See you in the next part. Thank you guys and goodbye.